Good morning, everybody. It's Steve Brown from Mirae Asset Securities, Mirae Asset Live. This morning we have Vinamilk in. We have Mr. Trung, who's the Investor Relations Manager for Vinamilk, the largest listed dairy company in Vietnam and the largest consumer listed company in Vietnam. Market cap is just under $9 billion US. Trung, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Stephen. Thanks for having me this morning.
Thank you. Now, if one casts our minds back to the story of Vinamilk, it's been the standout marquee portfolio stock for almost 200 international institutional investors for many years, basically since it listed January 2006 and boosted the market cap of the Jose by roughly double. Where have you seen over the time that you've been with Vinamilk the recent growth drivers for the company, and where do you see them between, say, 2021 remainder through to 2025, such as liquid milk, such as the flavored milks or yogurts and so on?
Okay, so we believe that the drivers for our business to grow in the past and also in the futures is to rely on the demand for dairy products in Vietnam, which is remain pretty low compared to other countries in the regions. According to the data by Euromonitor, one Vietnamese not last year but in 2019 consumed about 22 liters of dairy products a year, while in Thailand people over there consume already about 35 liters. And in Malaysia, it's already 30 liters. And in other more developed countries like South Korea, the consumption per capita was already above 45 liters. So you can see that there is a big gap between the consumption per capita for dairy products in Vietnam versus other countries. And that's going to be one of the very critical foundations for us to grow, because it means we can sell more dairy products to Vietnamese consumer in the futures as we did in the past. One supporting factor for that is the improving disposable income of Vietnamese consumer. Vietnamese GDP is growing at 6-7% a year in the normal conditions. Last year it was low because of COVID-19, but we do believe in long run and mid run it's going to be 6-7% a year for GDP growth. It also means that consumers in Vietnam would have much better incomes and they will have more money to spend on FMCG products, including dairy products.
Got it. Okay, so I agree with your sentiment on just the internal market organic growth with the higher per capita GDP, disposable income of the consumers. When you were talking about your ASEAN peers plus South Korea, the fact that the average annual dairy consumption in litres per annum per capita is still roughly less than half of South Korea's. Yes. So you have a huge gap at 21.8 litres per annum in 2019 terms versus South Korea at just under 43. Thailand is probably the reason why you've now enjoyed FNN as a substantial shareholder. Yes. Because the parent and related parties to FNN historically coming out of Thailand in the consumer space as well. So they've seen with higher GDP per capita growth as the economy develops, the consumers obviously take more dairy. So it's good that you've got a strategic partner like FNN there. Yes. That knows how the historic precedents worked. Could you share with us how you expanded upon your local consumer story with increasing disposable income? Could you share with us how you're also helping the children of Vietnam? Vinamilk in recent years won the bids to do the rollout of school-based milk for children in Hanoi, and you've done it in Vietnam's other major cities, including Ho Chi Minh City.
Yes. Yep. Okay. Thanks for bringing up that questions. A school meal program is one of the initiatives that we are very focused on at the moment. We joined this program back in 2018, and so far we are always the companies that supply the most dairy products to Vietnamese school children. And that's going to be the initiative that we keep doing in the future. And so far, the numbers of cities and provinces that have signed the contracts with Vinamilk is already above 30. So we believe that many more cities and provinces would sign contract with Vinamilk going forward.
Okay. And where you've got now the master plan townships being developed, such as with Vin groups, Vin homes, Central Park, Grand Park, do you also engage, you've had in the past some shop fronts where you're doing Vinamilk standalone stores.
Yes.
Are you thinking of using that as something you can roll out further, or do you prefer to deal direct in the modern trade with your partners and they can handle the distribution and marketing in store themselves?
Yeah, we will grow both of them in parallel.
Both.
Because we for our own standalone store, right now we have more than 500, and that's not just where we sell directly to the consumers, but that also support our online platform. When people they buy our products on our websites, we can use the standalone store as a delivery point to easily reach the consumer in the surrounding areas. So that's something that we cannot do with the third-party modern trade retailers. So that's why we still keep grow both channels in parallel.
Okay, so it's like a approximate DC that you can do home delivery to in a rapid period of time.
You can say that. Yeah.
Okay. Now, expanding on that, could you talk about the preferences of consumption of your SKUs among the differing age demographics, from infant formula for babies through to condensed milk and so on?
Just to make sure I understand your question properly, you're asking about the contribution, or
the consumer behavior, growth of the products. You know, you never used to be in the baby formula. You're in the baby formula now. Do you see that as one of your revenue drivers, or do you see the old school models that you used to have? You know, like the powder to liquid milk and condensed milk, and then flavored milk and yogurts now.
Yeah. We see that in recent years, the behavior of consumer are moving forward the natural products and the convenient products. For the natural products, we are talking about the fresh milk, 100% from the cow. So people have a strong demand for that. And fresh milk has been our best performer in our portfolio in the past few years. I think Vinamilk have a strong advantage for fresh milk because we have our own farms. We also buy from local farmers, but having our own farms really help us to self-supply, and we are independent with the raw milk materials. And for the convenient products, I'm talking about the ready-to-drink formula milk. So in the past, people would consume formula in powder form for themselves or for the children. But now we have busy life, so people would prefer ready-to-drink products. They also made from powders, but in bottle form. So they can grab it from the convenience store or the supermarket and consume easily at workplace or at home. So that's the trend that we are seeing.
Got it. Now, when you listed, you had 3 milk factories. Now you've got, correct me if I'm wrong, over 158,000 herd of cows, dairy cows, and you've got factories from Mok Cho to Ho Chi Minh City.
Yes.
You're mostly focusing internally in Vietnam, sourcing land for climatically friendly dairy production. You've been lucky with the Mok Cho M&A acquisition there. Looking at Cambodia and Laos, do you see those as future areas where you can expand your herd size and then also expand into those domestic markets as well?
Yes, you're right. We are building a very large farm complex in Laos. And the reason for that is because we find the weather condition in Laos is very suitable for dairy farming. And they can also offer a very large land bank compared to the lands that we could secure in Vietnam. And the cost of land is also cheaper for us. And over there, we plan to have about 100,000 cows in the long run. And for phase 1, it will be about 24,000 cows. The farm is already under construction, and we hope that it can go into operation in the next 2 to 3 years. And for the whole group, in the next 2 to 3 years, we expect that the total herd would increase by maybe 20,000 or 25,000 more.
Okay. Now, the next question, overseas subsidiaries. Could you give us a little bit of comment on, you've got 5 of those, including in California.
Yeah.
Could you just give a small summation on each of those if we start with California?
Yes. We acquired the business in South California, Driftwood, back in 2013. And at that time, we really want to understand how dairy business in a developed country work. So we can learn the experience and apply that back to our dairy business in Vietnam. And at that time, Driftwood was a well-known brand in South California. Today, they are selling mostly to schools, and the portfolio just is really matched with the portfolio we have in Vietnam, and we can see the synergies. So that's why we made that investment.
Okay, and M&A with Mok Cho, it's got dairy, but then through Vilico, you've got capacity for beef production as well.
Yes.
So with the increasing GDP per capita, increasing discretionary spend, not only are consumers intaking more dairy, but also more protein.
Yes.
One of those key protein inputs now increasingly is beef. So just give us a little bit of a comment on where you see that new part of the business going for your company.
Okay. First, we also received many questions from investors about why we want to get into beef. That's something that we haven't done before. For Vinamilk, we see the synergies in a way that at Vinamilk, at our dairy farms, we have many calves that we do not use every year. They are male calves, so they cannot be used for milking. That's why we can use those male calves as an input supply for the beef factories at the Vilico. So that's the very critical synergies that we see. And plus that, Vilico, they also have the land bank suitable for the beef farming. And for that reason, we decided to move into beef. And the opportunity we see is very potential. The beef market size in Vietnam is estimated at around $2 billion a year. And it's growing faster than pork and poultry consumption. In numbers, beef is expected to grow at about 6 to 7% a year, while poultry and pork consumption is expected to grow at just 3 to 5% a year. So beef seems to deliver better growth.
Okay. Now, with the other parts of the business, you've got coconut milk facility, you've got sugar investments as well. So you're starting to get a little bit of vertical integration there for your flavored milk ranges and also for your fruit juices. With the other investments that you've got where you're reliant upon importing, has COVID-19 impacted the business, such as where you import from New Zealand powdered milk for then reconstitution into liquid milk?
Luckily, we managed the logistics for our materials pretty well, even during the pandemic. So we didn't suffer from any form of the logistic disruption for our materials. So we get the sufficient materials for our production needs.
Okay. And the global powdered milk price has increased quite strongly Q1 2021, which has led to some people thinking that was one of the causal connections for some weakness in global listed dairy companies, Vinamilk being one of these that's been impacted by that. The offset, I would imagine, increasing dramatically in the coming years your own herd size, interdependency on New Zealand and other nations for powdered milk will start to dissipate. The current price hike, do you hedge at all at Vinamilk?
We do by the way that we lock in the price with our suppliers about 6 to 9 months in advance. And so far, according to the latest data I have, we have locked in the price for milk powder until the end of September. So that would allow us to somehow stabilize the cost of milk powder during the uptrend as we see in the global market.
Okay, so the recent price increase in Q1,
yes,
you were mostly hedged over that period through to September this year or so.
That's correct. But even that, the average cost of milk powder we expect to have this year will be still higher than in last year.
Mm.
Yeah.
Now, if we go to ownership, the government of Vietnam had a successful divestment of around about 5% of the company in 2016. In 2016, they asked for the shareholder ballot to be done to approve going to 100% foreign ownership limit status, and that was overwhelmingly approved by shareholders. Then in December 2017, we saw Jardines Platinum Victory successfully bid for about 5% of the stake that was held in trust by the SCIC at 186,000 VND a share. Currently, the government's sitting on about 36%.
Yes.
Do you foresee over the course of this year or the next 1 or 2 years, maybe another 5% sell down? Maybe a little bit more than that, given that it's now got approval for 100%?
So far, we haven't heard anything from the government. We only know the intention that eventually they will fully divest from Vinamilk, because that's the mandate from the government, that they will no longer keep any stake at dairy companies. But the timeline for that is not fixed. I think it will depend on the state budget. So when the state budget is under the needs for capitals, then the government would consider to divest. But not this year or next year.
Yeah, well, I was going to say the state budget's not looking too bad at the moment.
Yes,
foreign reserves are at record highs. So fortunately, with COVID, the government's kept everything under a very considered oversight. So fingers crossed that'll remain. Now, if we look at the major improvements that Vinamilk's brought into the production of everything from the dairy in the farm through to delivery, automation, inventory, the technologies that you've brought to bear, you're vending in technology from Germany, Italy, Switzerland. You've also got a pretty well fully automated smart robot system by LGV Robots.
Yes.
I've been to one of the facilities there and seen that, and it's state of the art. When you're moving into Laos and Cambodia, you're obviously doing that technology transfer and embedding of the processes that you've got locally. Your headcount for the staff, do you have many people involved in Laos and Cambodia at the moment, for reference?
I don't really have the exact numbers of our headcounts over there, but we do still have several staff in both countries. Will be more staff in Cambodia, because in Cambodia it's already under operations. We have factories over there, but in Laos everything is still under construction, so the number of headcount would be fewer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when is construction in Laos likely to become online, and the first shipments and deliveries of milk likely? When is that? Is that second half this year, or?
We expect that something in earlier next year or at the end of next year.
Okay.
So it still depends on the situation relating to COVID-19. we hope that we can control it well. So if everything is okay, then the process could be speed up.
Okay. Now, environmentally friendly production, ESG, that's on everyone's lips. One thing that I've noted from your materials for investors is the percentage of renewable energy is now over 2/3. What you're doing there, about 67.8% renewable energy for used in your production. You're using around about 25% clean energy at your production department. You've got roughly the top 10, well, you're in the top 10 Vietnam sustainable manufacturing enterprises, and you've got 100% of your exploited water now also following ESG standards. I naturally assume this will all be transplanted, of course, when you do things in Laos and Cambodia, exactly. No doubt already doing it in Cambodia.
So for the factories in Cambodia, we also apply very similar practice as the factories in Vietnam. So I'm very confident that the practice over there, they would meet any requirements from ISO or Global Gap. And the same for the farms in Laos when it's completed.
Okay. Now, the FTAs that Vietnam signed, yes. Vietnam's party to many FTAs, the recent ones that have come into effect, the EU VN-FTA, also the UK VN-FTA modeled similarly on that. Do you see the competitive threat from those nations being increasingly competitive force, or do you see with the natural increase in litres per annum per capita, you'll be able to offset any intrusion of your FTA rivals with just naturally increasing sales?
Yeah, that's something that we also notice. And first, we must say that we feel happy for Vietnamese consumers because nowadays we have more options. When you go to big supermarket in Ho Chi Minh City today, you can see that more and more imported milk products are coming. And for us, we see it as the threat that we have to deal with. But it's not new to us because the free trade agreement with Europe is something new, but before that we already have the free trade agreement with New Zealand and Australia, and the milk from those countries already enjoy like 0% tax in Vietnam. But we have been dealing with that pretty well in the past, so we are confident that we can also deal with the new flows of imported milk from Europe again these times. And for us, we have a nationwide distribution network. And that's something not easy for foreign players to replicate. They can reach the urban consumers, but for rural consumers, it will be still, we believe, the territory of Vinamilk. Yeah.
Yes, okay. And domestically, your rivals, the standout noted rival is TH True Milk. Yes. And then after that, it's, for the moment, pretty well Daylight, much lower tier competitive threats. The Lat Milk, IDP, low tar milk, do you see any other big consumer companies perhaps having a look at, say, a IDP, low tar milk, and trying to bring them into their conglomerate and then try to house brand out or reinvigorate those extant brands that they've got within their own company, such as, you know, hypothetically, if one of those companies I mentioned got taken out by, say, a MASconnect of this world, and then they launched their own MASconnect milk range, or yes. tried to reinvigorate yes. and nationwide roll out low tar milk. That, to me, could be a possibility, but like what you've just mentioned with the external to Vietnamese threats, you've already got your distribution network in place, you know, so okay, they might be able to do that, but it would probably take a few years to get to scale somewhat similar to what you've got. Plus, you've got 158,000 cows already
Yes.
producing milk, and Dalat and low-tar milk, they've got a ways to go to catch up there. So I think from what I can see, it's mostly TH True Milk. But your thoughts on the local competitive landscape and where you see some competitive M&A would be of high interest.
We just acquired GTN less than 2 years ago, and under GTN there is Mộc Châu Milk, or MCM. Right now in our mind, in Vietnam, the opportunities for M&A within dairies is not so many. You can see that the market is quite consolidated at the moment. We have big players accounts for, I think, 90% of market share, like Vinamilk, Friesland, Camena, TH, Nutifood. So in order to acquire another companies, it's not easy because we are all now like major players. But we would rather focus on growing MCM, Mộc Châu Milk, because that's a new business and still have a lot of room for development. So that would be our focus for the local market.
Okay.
But outside of Vietnam, we were still looking for M&A opportunities. We see that other countries in Southeast Asia, like Philippines or Indonesia, they can offer very good M&A opportunities, and we are still looking at those countries.
And in furtherance to that, Jardines and also FNN, they're operating in most of those regions that you would naturally potentially look at to firstly expand into.
Yeah.
Jardines, you've recently had approval in the last year or so to export into China. Your international marketing efforts into China, could you touch on those?
Okay, China's we are still studying that market, and we want to do it very carefully because China is a very competitive market, especially local players like Yili and Minh, they are very strong. And even though we are number one in Vietnam, but when we go to China, we are new players. So the process to penetrate into China could be slow. It will not be fast. And but we have made some significant achievement, like we secured the license to export yogurt and condensed milk. And going forward, we are confident we will get the license to export fresh milk and formula milk as well. But in order for China to become a big part of our business, that will take quite many years.
And to wrap things up, with the FTAs now in place in Europe, have you been speaking to any of the large supermarket chains, shopping chains, who could do most of your legwork in distributing Vinamilk, such as through the discount supermarkets in Germany like Aldi and so on? What's the strategy for Vinamilk now that their FTAs are in place? You want to go through partnerships like that at the macro level, or do you want to try to penetrate through exclusive nationwide distributors and let them run with it and see how they want to do it?
So you're asking about the market where we signed the FTA with, right?
Yes.
So right now we still have the big focus on Vietnam, where we have the expertise and we still see the opportunities to grow. For all the markets where where Vietnam signed the FTA right now, we still haven't had a plan to enter in those markets, like in Europe. Actually, Europe dairy market is we would say saturated, and there are big players over there. So when we expand internationally, our focus could be within Southeast Asia, where we share very similar nutrition habits, and it's also close to Vietnam. So if we want to observe the market and mobilize the team, that could be also more convenient.
Okay, Trung, thank you very much for being on Mirae Asset Live. It's been most enlightening, and every success for the company moving forward. We'll have to have you back in several months' time after your half yearlies come out, and you've bedded down some of the other expansion areas in Laos and Cambodia, Mokcho dairy, and also we'll be interested to see and hear an update on Vilico and your beef protein new business platform as well. So thank you very much.
Definitely. My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. It's Steve Brown from Mirae Securities.